I had made a narrative film called All Good Things about sort of Robert Durst's origin story, his relationship with his beautiful wife when they were both young, before all the bad stuff started happening, and he became the guy that he became.
What was the premise of the film?
It was basically the story about him and his wife when they first met, this rich guy and this girl from sort of the other side of the tracks, and then how eventually that relationship got toxic, eventually kills her, and then later his best friend, Susan Berman, who knows about what happened to his wife, starts to become problematic, then he kills her, and then later he moves to Galveston, Texas, and disguises himself as a deaf-mute woman, if you remember this, and he ends up becoming friends with his elderly neighbor and this guy named Morris Black, and they go out shooting in Pelican Island and so on, and eventually they have a little altercation because he figured out who Bob Durst was and that he was sort of on the run, and he dismembers that man. He kills him and dismembers him. And the real Robert Durst reads the article and calls me out of the blue. And I've had tried to get in touch with him before without any success. He calls me immediately after he sees the film and he says, "I want you to know I like the movie very much." The movie kind of shows him killing people, right? I've just finished a movie about him, a dramatic film, which is now in theaters, and I sit down with him and interview him for 21 hours. He sort of came into it with the attitude that he wanted to tell his version of the story so people would stop thinking he was a murderer. But during the course of it, he admits to so many bad things that you just pretty quickly assume that he is guilty. We find this evidence.
What was that evidence again?
So there was a famous note that the killer of Susan Berman, this friend of Bob Durst of California, had left behind when he shot Susan Berman. And the note said 1527 Benedict Canyon, cadaver. And it was sent to the Beverly Hills Police Department. And that very seldom happens, but people speculated a lot. Well, why would somebody who killed somebody have sent a note to the police? Well, maybe if he liked the person, if it was his best friend, this woman Susan Berman, and it was Bob Durst that did it, then maybe he wouldn't want her body to lie there, and she has dogs, he didn't want the dogs to mess with the body. So he may have just killed her and then left this note. But then later when he was asked about it, he said, I have no knowledge about that note. So when we're doing our investigation, we discover a letter that he had written to Susan Berman that has almost the exact same words on it because it's addressed to her at 1527 Benedict Canyon. So we can see the handwriting on that, not just a handwriting sample, but a handwriting sample that's saying exactly what it said on the letter that
with the same misspelled words, right?
Exactly. And of course, this letter that we find, he also misspells the word Beverly. So nobody had ever seen, or the police had known about this letter. So we find it, and then I immediately start planning a way for me to show it to him in a second interview. And he'd always said to me, like, "Oh, if you ever need me to sit down again, I'm happy to come back and I'll ask it, answer any question you want." But I start to call him about doing the second interview, and he gets very skittish. And then this goes on for 2 years. And so we have this evidence, but we need to show it to him. So we finally get him to sit for the second interview. And I show him the evidence in the interview, and he has this incredible meltdown. I don't know if you remember this, but he starts burping uncontrollably, and he starts rubbing his face and breathing, and he's obviously very, very surprised to see that there's this letter that matches the cadaver note that he admitted could only have been written by the killer. I finish the interview with him, and he gets up and goes to the bathroom. And he leaves his microphone attached. And while he's in the bathroom, he confesses to the murder. He's a guy who talks to himself a lot. So when he goes in the bathroom, the first thing he says when he goes in is, "There it is, you're caught." He says that to himself. And and then he goes on to say, "Killed them all. I killed them all, of course." 26 months later, that we have an editor, Shelby Siegel, who is just going through audio and kind of cleaning up old tracks because we're getting ready to deliver the film to HBO. And she sees on the editing system that there's a little waveform, there's a little squiggle that shows that there's some audio when he's in the bathroom. But he was in the bathroom for 7 minutes. So they go and get the drive that has the other 7 minutes of audio on it. And it's this long rambling confession. And I call the LAPD and the LA District Attorney and say, "Hey, I know, literally 2 days ago, we gave you the documents, we gave you the letter so that you could start this prosecution. We found something else." And so they come to New York and they listen to this confession, and it's just absolutely mind-blowing that happened. And then when the series comes out, we've been working with the police then for a couple of years while they were building the prosecution. And when the film finally comes out, when the series comes out on HBO, he is arrested the day before the final episode. So it's in the final episode that he makes that confession, and they arrest him right before because they knew that he was going to go on the run.